Welcome. My name is Karen Dodd. I'm the Chief Performance Officer at the Kentucky Department of Education. We're so glad you all are here to join us tonight to learn a little bit about our new framework for an accountability assessment and accountability model. I just want to go over a couple things. Probably most of you know this building more than I do, but if you go back out the way you came in, to your right are the restrooms, and exits are out that way as well. And it looks like we've got exits all around us here. So if there were an emergency, finally instant. All right, when you signed in, there was a little sheet, and you picked that up. This is just if you have a question and you're not comfortable raising your hand at the end to ask it, you can write it down on here. Just give it to one of us up here on the stage, and we will make sure to get an answer to you afterward. The other thing that you may have picked up is this list of QR codes. And you can see on here, if you want more examples, you're going to hear a really great example about vibrant learning from Greenup County tonight. But if you would like to see more examples, you can click on that first QR code. As Dr. Stafford talks about Framework 2.0, there are more technical details behind that, which if you click on that second QR code to see more information on that. If you are so excited over what you hear tonight and you want to get more involved with us, then you are going to click on that first QR code and we will get in touch with you to tell you how you can help us moving forward. And then finally, the last one, this is another way to ask a question. So this is another one that we're collecting throughout these town halls. We start 8 town halls tonight. We're collecting all of the questions that get asked, put together a frequently asked question list. So you will click on that one if you want to submit a question electronically, again, to be answered later and included in that. The other thing is just the framework. So this is also out there. If you pick this up, Jennifer will be going through this in detail tonight. So if you need one of those, you're welcome to take one with you. With that, I will turn it over to our commissioner, Dr. Robbie Fletcher.
Good evening, everyone. This is number 8 of 9. We've been on this town hall show. If you will, I hope you don't mind. I'd like this to be down on the floor a little bit better. It's a very smaller crowd, but we've had, I think, with this group in, we've had over 500 people at our town halls, and they've been great. And listen, the point of these town halls is to get in. What you see in front of you, we're going to talk a little bit about 2.0, and already I can tell you there's going to be a 3.0. And that's because we're taking the input of the people that had to go through. So, first of all, just being all the way over here.
Is it not working?
There we go. My name is Robbie Fletcher. I'm the commissioner. I've been here since July 1. I don't know how time has gone so quickly. See so many familiar faces and so many friends in the crowd. Superintendents have been a part of your group for 10 years. And believe me, the support that I've seen for superintendents among each other in my 10 years as superintendent has been phenomenal. People have been lifting each other up, and they're trying to work together to do better things for all kids. By the way, Superintendent Webb, beautiful facility here. This building is absolutely beautiful. Got a chance to see the swimming pool that I'm sure a lot of you in this room, you have students that get used to that. And again, that's part of the collaboration that we like to see. When districts are, hey, we have this, we're willing to work with other districts to make sure you have this opportunity also too. But really what we're here to talk a little bit about is the accountability model. And you're going to hear this phrase, this statement throughout. In order to build a prosperous Kentucky, we're going to launch an accountability system that is both meaningful and useful to all learners. Now, I'm going to argue, I think we'll have a lot of people that will agree tremendously with us, that in order to have an accountability model that is both meaningful and useful to every single person in the Commonwealth, not only students, which that's their main focus, but also to our teachers, to our principals, there has to be a measure of local accountability to be a part of it. What exactly is expected of our local communities of us? What type of information are our communities asking of us? How do they hold us accountable? Don't get me wrong. We truly believe that math and reading, there's been such an investment by our state legislators into numeracy and literacy. And we owe them a return on investment, not only just for them, but also for our kids. And by the way, our math scores weren't bad. We're one of 15 states that had an improvement in mathematics, a statistically significant improvement, I would say. But also, too, we had either an increase or held for the first time since 2019 in COVID with our NAEP scores. So we got a long way to go, but we've seen some improvements already. But we also believe that we're more than just a test score. Our kids are more than just a math reading test score. For example, you're going to hear us talk about public learning. You're going to hear us talk about an accountability system. We also have a grading council here to talk to, and I'll give a little bit of a segue into that just a little bit. But one big phrase that you're going to hear the whole time is vibrant learning. I don't have to tell you what vibrant learning looks like. You've got to Ignite Institute up here. That's vibrant learning, folks. That's what vibrant learning looks like. I share this example too. When you hear about vibrant learning, it's about relevance. What's relevant to each and every child? What makes learning meaningful and useful to that student? And I always tell this story. Here's another good example of vibrant learning. East Kentucky, which is where I'm from, if you can't tell by the voice, I'm very proud of the fact I was raised in Nevada Hollers, and always would like to shine a light on that. But there were different schools, various schools in East Kentucky that do something called a tiny house project. And if you think about tiny house projects, essentially you have schools where an engineering class designs a tiny house. It's on a trailer that's pulled behind, a vehicle of some sort that can do that. But you also have a carpentry class that builds it. You also have electricity classes that wire it. You also have art classes that paint. You also have business classes that work on the budget. You got basically an entire school, a large part of the school working together to put these tiny houses together, and then they're all sent to auction. As a matter of fact, I told a story about one in particular. One of these tiny houses was purchased out in Eastern Kentucky. I think it came out, I want to say it was Knox County, but don't quote me on that. But it's one of the groups in Eastern Kentucky where a tiny house was purchased by a gentleman from California. He drove all the way to Eastern Kentucky, purchased the tiny house, hooked onto it, then took it out west. And along different landmarks, he would stop and take pictures, send it back to the students at different landmarks. That tiny house is now on a beach on the Pacific Ocean. And now, this is several years ago, now we have students that are trying to start their own tiny house. As a matter of fact, 2 students are working with some of the forestry division and some of the state parks on building tiny houses that people can rent in tiny houses. That's meaningful and useful learning. But you're seeing that already here. How many of your students are doing work-based learning, job shadowing? How many of your students are out getting all these opportunities that is learning that is relevant to their kids? So the question is, how do we hold ourselves accountable to that? How do we make that a part of accountability? Because that's what we want our kids to have. We want all our kids to have that type of vibrant learning, whether it be work-based learning, capstone projects, defensive learning. As a matter of fact, we've had students talk about defensive learning. I'm sure several of you do defensive learning, where you have businesses come in and actually go through a rubric and give students feedback. But there's businesses coming in and say, you know what, we're going to offer you a job before we walk out of here. And that's relevant. That's vibrant. The 3 big ideas that you're going to hear us talk about, and as we go through the very first one, vibrant learning, I gave you a great example. The second one is accelerating innovation, especially when it comes to accountability. We're going to talk to you about an accountability model that has 2 parts. One, we're trying our best to streamline the federal accountability side. And honestly, we probably got another step to take as far as streamlining the federal accountability. And it revolves around science. So we've still got another step to take when it comes to science as far as streamlining. But we're hearing that from our superintendents. We're hearing that from our town halls. And there's parts that we need to streamline. So those are things that this is 2.0. That 3.0 will be out with other information. So, and Dr. Stafford does a much better job talking about this than I do. So she'll give you the models of your short. But how do we change accountability? Not only include that federal piece, but also the local piece. I know with Canton County, one of the things that they include their local accountability, Logan County does this also too, is, and now let me go back to Logan County for a second. They have 4 pillars in their local accountability model. The first pillar is student achievement. And in that student achievement, it's state testing, but also their local MAP scores combined together, and they put that out to their local community. That's part of their local accountability. That's what their local community wanted to know about. They also want to know about growth. I also want to hear us talk about growth. Where in this model, we're asking to remove change and have growth, because to me, the best model talks about where did you get the child and where did you take the child. That's growth. That's what we really need to measure. But also, too, when you look at that federal piece, there's different parts that's going to change. But in the local accountability, when you look at local county, the third part deals with ratings. They focus on certifications, dual credit, AP courses. I think that's another part. I think in what advanced coursework, what percentage of kids are part of advanced coursework. That needs to be a part of local accountability if that's what your community wants. If your community really wants to focus on certification, that should be a big part of your local accountability. If it's about what percentage are taking AP courses, it should be about that. But the fourth piece that comes from local county is student well-being. Student attendance is something that their community want to hear about. But another part that they ask for is what percentage of our students are involved in extracurricular, co-curricular activities? What percentage of our students are a part of a drama production? What percentage of our students are a part of JROTC and compete? What part of our students are on the basketball team? What percentage of our students are in band and cheerleading? Because if you look at the research, one of the best indicators of success for a student is how involved they are outside the classroom. I'm going to brag on Ms. Tracy here, Ms. Tracy Gracie, superintendent in Green County. When we talk about accountability, and I hope she doesn't mind if I share this, it might be her story. Well over a decade ago, Green County High School was a persistent low achieving school. And what was your the rate of poverty? 68.4 or something like that. So when they were in 2009, 2010 in that area, 68.9% poverty. Well, they wanted to turn around their school. 10 years later, high performing high school, school distinction, if I'm not mistaken, poverty rate, 68.9%. The same. That's a data point. We could do all the testing that we want, but we didn't bring people back to get them jobs in our community. That's another level of accountability. That's more than just a test. How do we impact the poverty rates in our community? That can be part of our local accountability. That's up to you. And that's what you'll see as we go further. And the key part of that also too is collaboration. You're going to hear a lot about local accountability. One of my favorite slides I've seen so far came when Woodford County presented. They actually gave all the logos of the different districts that they've been working with on their local accountability model. You had Woodford County working with Clark County. They had meetings on a regular basis where they're talking back and forth about the local accountability model. They've also worked with Shelby County, Logan County, Rowan County, Johnson County. I mean, there's a large variety of districts that are working together to develop a local accountability. Should it look the same? Absolutely not. Because we're a different Commonwealth. We're very diverse. Our needs are different. Our resources are different. So whatever it looks like in Fort Thomas Islands, it definitely shouldn't look the same in Orange County. We have different needs. Our students have different needs. But how do you get people to collaborate that have those similar backgrounds to build that local accountability model? Federal accountability is part of this. We're not running away from math and reading. You'll see that later on because we know that's important. But we also believe that local accountability has to play a major role. Everyone has something that's both meaningful and useful to all of them. I'm not going to go through all the journey, but I do want to say this. We're listening. There's been 4 different prototypes on pathways talking about this is what accountability looks like in our state. We got to the point where we did a model framework 1.0. We heard loudly from the full council, from our LSAC, and also from, our Kentucky Board of Education, that science needed to be pulled out. We need to focus on science separately, and we want to have student voice in the involvement. So the difference, one of the biggest differences between 1.0 and 2.0 is how science plays a part of that federal piece. You'll see that in a second. It actually pulled out in a second. It's on its own. It's not a part of the CSI, TSI, ATSI designation. And that's what we heard. So we made the change. We've got other things that already I can tell you as far as entry assessments that we've heard in town halls and from our superintendents, we need to change. For example, math. So many of our districts are so reliant on their math and I rating, maybe they don't want to use our entry assessments. If they don't, that's fine. That's 3.0. That's not 2.0, that's the 3.0. But you go again, you're more about that. So what we hope to do is have after the town halls and we get a final model framework that we feel comfortable with, is to take us to the General Assembly in 2026. But that just starts the work. And you'll see if you've already got papers, there's an onboarding process it's going to take us years to do. But I think it's worth it. I'm excited about it. I love where we're going with this, but we still got a long way to go. And that's why you want to hear from me. I talked a little bit about the federal and state already. You can see one of the big things that we're hoping for is we don't want this to have to wait till the fall to get instructional data. What we'd like to see is a similar to what's happening with your math and STAR and I rating, and we give some interims and you get data tomorrow after giving the test today that you can make instructional decisions on Monday. Now, again, how does that work? What's that look like? We want to hear from you. Other things, allowing flexibility. Let me just say this, the federal state part to me is not nearly as important, but it's the part that we have to have as far as the requirements for federal. That's not the big piece of this. The most important part is what you're going to see on the left, in my opinion. Because it's asking you to be accountable and us to be accountable to our local communities and what do they expect. And the last thing I'll say before I go over any more, we want districts to feel the freedom to develop a local accountability model that allows them to grow. So you're not going to hear me assign a number or percentage at this point to local accountability. Federal accountability is treated separately than local accountability. And the reason for that is I don't want any district to feel like they've got to give me some type of model that gives them 100 across the board. Because if you do, it's not worth the paper it's written on, nor is it worth the website that it's published to. Because it's not about growth, it's not about students. It's more about making sure I'm not CSI kids. It's different. That's allowing flexibility for districts to be students. You're on, and read your report. Please don't walk out here thinking that the commissioner wants to do away with math and reading tests. I don't. We still need to have opportunities that are, if you're going to act like with CSI, TSI, and ATSI schools, it needs to be usable. It needs to be standardized. It has to be, legally it has to be. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure we have. So, for tonight, I'm wrapping up. I'm about 2 or 3 minutes over. I apologize. Welcome to introduction. We're going to have talk about volume learning. We do have, what do we have? We're going to do about learning tonight. Alexa, sorry, you're on. You're going to be up next. She's going to talk to you a little bit about comparing, traditional, what we, and honestly, every time I see this presentation, I thought that's how I did it when I was in school versus what we hope to see spread throughout the country. And there is a little bit of, they did a great job of doing black and white versus color. That's pretty good. It took me about 2 presentations to catch that. And then we have Superintendent Racy. She's going to talk about the journey of Greenwood County. We really appreciate her being here. And then we'll close. Then we have Dr. Stafford who will actually give you more details about 2.0. And then we'll close with questions and answers. Now, you should have a card, and we're going to do our best to answer questions. And if we can't answer those tonight, we'll get back to you. But if you don't feel comfortable asking a question, just say it and leave. There's no back questions. You're more welcome to write it down and we'll get back to you later on. Make sure you have some contact information. That being said, I'll turn it over to Ms. Harmon.
Right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Commissioner Fletcher said, I'm Alexa Harden, and I am the Regional Innovation Specialist for Northern and Eastern Kentucky. So before we get started with our deep dive into vibrant learning, I'd like to ask that you take out your phone for just a second and you find a picture of a child that you love. This may be your child, it may be a niece, a nephew, a grandchild, it may even be a student. But as you're looking for that picture, I want you to think about a couple things. I want you to think about how special that child is first. And then I want you to think about what kind of learner they are. And I want you to think about what kind of learning experiences do you want for that child. So I'll give you just a second to do that. All right, once you found your picture, turn to someone sitting near you, and I want you to share. Share the picture that you took and your answer to these questions. I'll give you just a second to do that. All right, we'll wrap up your conversations in 5, 4, 2, 1. Thank you so much. Now, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but the room completely changed during that activity. The looks on your faces changed. The volume of the room changed. And that's because you were experiencing joy. And that's exactly what we want for our kids in our classrooms every single day. So we're going to look at a couple of examples now. All of us in here can probably agree that when we were learning something new in school, we did this through reading it out of the textbook. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this traditional example. Students are learning about pollinators. They're learning about the dangers that they face. They're learning about the benefits of pollinators. And they're doing that through reading out of a textbook, completing some worksheets, and then for their assessments, they are completing a multiple choice quiz over what they've learned. However, these students are learning the same content. These students were faced with a driving question: how can we inspire others to protect and support pollinators? Students are collaborating and they're conducting research, and then they're able to build their own pollinator garden at their school by collaborating with community members who are experts on the topic. Students also are able to make seed packets and bracelets to inspire change among their peers as well. In this middle school example, students are learning about the human body and the body systems. So again, to do that, they are reading out of a textbook, they are taking notes, and then completing some worksheets, writing down definitions. Again, a very traditional setting that many of us probably experience. However, in this middle school example from the Commonwealth, these students were posed with the question, what's going on in McKenna's body making her feel the way that she does? Students are placed in medical expert teams. They are conducting their own research and putting together a presentation. And then these students present their findings to a group of medical experts from their community. Many of us in here have probably read the book or read the novel To Kill a Mockingbird, or if you haven't, you've read one very similar, and then you were probably asked to write an essay. Do you feel the main character was a hero? And if we're being completely transparent, the only person who read that essay was probably the teacher grading. However, this example also comes from the Commonwealth as well. These students were given the driving question, what makes someone a hero? They explore this question through the lens of the Jim Crow South, using a combination of fiction and nonfiction texts. Students are then collaborating with one another, and they are creating a video for their school's Activism Week to inspire change among their peers. Many of you have probably already seen this definition numerous times, but if you haven't, I'll give you just a second to read over that now. But I think it's very important to notice or to point out that this definition was created by the Kentucky United We Learn Council. That council is made up of teachers, school and district leaders, parents, community members, legislators, all stakeholders that want the very same for their children and grandchildren and family members that they care about as we want for ours sitting in this room today. And if you look, you'll see some bold words up there. Relevant, authentic, personalized products. These are things that we saw shine through in those vibrant examples. And they're also probably many of the things that you mentioned when you were having that conversation about the child that you love. Here's another fantastic example of vibrant learning, and this is out of Spencer County. So this came from Spencer County Middle School, and this student summed it up better than probably any of us could. And I think it's so important to point out the evidence that she used. This was relevant to her. It utilized her creativity. It was meaningful to her, and it really connected the dots between the content and how she can use that in the future. In 2022, the Kentucky Board of Ed adopted the Kentucky Portrait of Learning, which is a collection of knowledge, skills, and competencies that students should know and be able to do upon graduation. This Portrait of a Learner not only encompasses academic skills, but also the durable skills that we know our students need to be successful. This is just a model. Many districts are working with their local communities to create their own portrait of a learner that contains competencies that is meaningful and is useful to the people that that district serves. If you think back to that picture that you showed your neighbors just a few minutes ago, we don't know what the world's going to look like in 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, 1 year. We don't know what we're preparing our students for. But we know they have to have these durable skills in order to be successful in whatever career path that they choose. So we currently have over 140 of our 171 districts who either already have a portrait of a learner or are currently developing their own portraits of a learner. And many of these school districts are creating their performance assessment system to monitor student progress when it comes to the competency. And this is typically done through student exhibitions of learning and through student defenses of learning as well. I want to go back just a second to the moonshot of this work. We know that the best way to reach this moonshot is through local districts collaborating with each other and also with their local communities to determine what matters most to the people they serve. So next we're going to learn a little bit about local accountability and what that means and what that's looking like across the Commonwealth. This quote is from Dr. Brian Friesman, who is the superintendent of Fleming County Schools, and he sums it up beautifully. But just as the portrait of a learner measures success for individual students, local accountability measures success of a larger system, like a school system or a school district. It's based upon a partnership between school districts and the communities they serve. And the community requests, the community has a voice in what they want reported. And then the school district does that. The school district answers that call and produces that information that is valuable and that is important to the community that it serves. We are truly in the midst of a movement in Kentucky. Districts are collaborating with one another now more than ever and working with their communities more than ever to establish relationships and to build bonds so that we are creating an accountability system and a learning experience that is meaningful and useful to the students that it serves. So tonight we are very fortunate to have Miss Tracy Moracy here from Greenwood County Schools, and she is going to share about their local accountability system and what that looks like, and how it's not only impacted their schools, but also their community and the student experience. So I will turn it over to Ms. Moracy.
I like the idea of being down low. Now, can you guys see me now? Okay. All right. Good evening, guys. I am Tracy Moracy. Yes, I run. And when I retire, I am going to do baseball announcing because I feel like I have the perfect name for it. I was invited here because our district is a member of both NKCES and a member of KGC. And so Dr. Fletcher knew that we had been doing some of this work, and I'm very honored to be here tonight. We have a little bit different setup than what a lot of you do, where you're a little closer to the city, have more businesses. And so something I want you to keep in mind with us, we are the largest employer in our county. So when it comes to getting entrepreneurships, different people to work with us, let them come, start a business, or even give them a job, it's very difficult. So we started having to create our own jobs. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. Beginning. Dr. Fletcher, of course, stole my entire presentation. Skipping reference. 2010, we were PLA. This was before my time. I arrived in 2014, and within a week, my superintendent had just arrived as well. She handed me a manual and said, "Your standard 3." I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I found out real quick. Standard 3 was instruction and assessment and getting everything turned around so that you could actually be out of state control. So, a lot of high pressure, a lot of walkthroughs, instructional rounds, teaching to the test. Taking a test to prepare for the test, then teaching for the test, and then reteaching and testing again. Practice for the test. How did you do on the test? Analyze the test. I can go on, right? I was staffed and Jennifer put up with me a lot, so thank you, Jennifer. So that was my job. If you'll look, we had a graduation rate that was ridiculous. Those kids were not walking out like they should. So let me point that out first of all. You look at this career readiness, they had not caught on to that bonus factor. Remember, we all caught on to that, right? Superintendent, you could get it both career and college ready. So we learned how to game the system. I'll be honest, that's what happened. ACT was a 17.5, poverty rate 68.2. Enrollment. Now, if you look at the next one, 2018-19, we had been there. We had 3 years of working. We had learned to go for the low-hanging fruit and figure out how to turn it around. In that time, we became distinction, which was the highest you could get. We were proud. When I look back on that, I'm a little ashamed. I'm going to go ahead and give you my Catholic guilt. I feel bad about it because I thought that was the only thing that mattered. That was my job. That's what I was going to do. And I did not understand that in that time, I was leaving behind some kids that were getting tested out of joy in the classroom. They were missing opportunities. There is a way to both. I'm not saying testing is bad, because in a career, you do have to take a test in order to be able to get a certification, to be a doctor, to be a lawyer. There are exams that are very important. So that skill is something you need to do, but it's not your only skill. Graduation rate, we had figured it out. We knocked on doors, we started credit recovery, we got going. Career readiness, like I said, we learned there were bonus points. I was very excited about that one. ACT, we had people come in, do lots of skill and drill. Here are tips and tricks and hoops that you can do to get a better score. But this is the one that really hit me hard. Look at that poverty rate. Remember I said, we were the #1 employer. We weren't helping. And as a matter of fact, because funding was decreasing for schools, we weren't getting raises either. So we had teachers that qualified for food stamps. That's not okay. Our enrollment was declining because we were having job labs that were nearby. So anybody who might have been at something like an NKCES, a hospital closed, it was getting sad. This is an example of what happened just a couple of years ago. This is our judge cadet. We went from having a judge cadet who couldn't pronounce my name to now he can. I'm kidding. We have looked at a new one. This guy is actually a really good friend now, and he was one of the first ones to sign up to our community. I remember picking up the phone, I called Lou Young, and I said, Lou, I know that you're big on innovation. I really want to see our kids doing something more. How do we get out of constantly having to prepare for this test and get to do some fun stuff? And she said, we need to do the ILN, the learning network, we do innovation. We love that. So I signed up, that got us to L3, full council, and suddenly I was sucked into all of these committees. And we started having community meetings. We had 50 people sign up. They all showed up and they started telling us what they really wanted. This is a college professor. She's a mom. This is the local body shop owner. Dad was the big quarterback. He was a football player. They ran a body shop together. If you need anything, you can go to Jim and Joe's. And he's also our #1 sponsor for basketball. This guy introduced me to welding, but a different type of welding. Everybody knows about the track program in CTE, where you have to do so many hours. He said, well, you know what you get at your school, your kids can't use. That's what we learned in those meetings. I said, tell me more. What do you mean they can't use it? He said, well, we're union here. We don't hire people with that. You need a different program. Okay, so if you're in a bigger city, yes, we'll use that. If you're in Appalachia, they do not use that part. They want a union trade. He's with IBW. We worked out a deal. We spent 10 grand, got a curriculum. Kids can now be an apprentice their senior year. They walk out of journeyman. They're making $30 an hour, and it doesn't count for state testing. It doesn't count as career ready, even if they're certified, because it's not what we have listed. And I said, it's okay. We'll be all right. We've got a lot of other things that kids can do to get certified. We're doing this circuit. This is a local doctor who went away, wanted to come home. Her dad is actually one of the most profitable people here. He's the mortician. So in that meeting, we had a list of things that they thought were important. I took the ones because being a person of data, I found that there was highly repetitive statements they gave me on post-it notes. It was very technical. The ones that were constantly repeated the most, I put them in a list. And I said, okay, so what everyone has mentioned over and over. Now rank them for me. So that's why you have an odd number there. So I know that's going to bother you, like Henry, I'm sorry. There's a real method to my madness here. I had them rank them and submit them. Number one thing they wanted to see, they wanted them ready. They wanted them to go out with a career. They wanted them to come out with a graduation. They were fine with business. They were worried about their mental health. And remember, we were doing this after COVID. We started these during COVID. We were wearing masks, right? Because we could finally get people back in the building. They wanted to know what our kids were doing, how we could come out and give back. Parents to schools, I was shocked. They really had all along thought graphs and the football score were the #1 things people were concerned about. because nobody ever called me and said their kid didn't get to read out loud that day, but they did tell me if their kid didn't get the game. College prep was number 8 because they did say not everybody's going to go. And we had a very, very high rate of kids going, wrapping up debt, and coming back. No way to go back in because they didn't follow up their loans anymore. Kind of put it behind. ACT and test scores, they knew it was important. They had experienced PLA, they saw their kids test prep, but they didn't think it was the end. This is where we came up with our profile of the graduate. The same group of people kept coming back, and I didn't even beat them. It was amazing. They still came back. Grade 8. So the state of Kentucky has 6 components. You know, we're overachievers in Green County. We had to do a little bigger. The grade 8, number 1 is the roadmap. They sit down as a freshman and talk to their counselor with a one-on-one and decide kind of what they're thinking. And they're getting a head start thanks to a couple of our middle schools who have implemented CTE fully that match all the programs that we have at the high school. So they've already dabbled. They've had appetizers. And they do it for an entire year, not just in 9 weeks. They pick something to go with it. Their 6th grade year, they dabble. Their 7th grade year, they get a little deeper. While their 8th grade year, they're like, I love construction. I love math. And that's what they take. When they come in, they do their roadmap. And remember, all of them also have an exit interview as 8th graders with me. Myself and my team, we sit down and do interviews with them, about 500 kids, and we ask them different things. Here are all the sports we have. What would you like to be interested in? Here are all the classes that we offer. Here are all of our clubs. Because just as you talked about well-being, you want them involved. We put it into a spreadsheet, we form it out to the coach, and we say, Coach, here's a list of freshmen that are coming in that might want to do something with your team. Because we know if we announce for them to go to it at lunchtime, they're terrified and they're not going unless a friend goes. But if a coach comes up to you in the hallway and says, I hear you might be interested in archery, we're meeting down here in my room, this is the room you're coming to. You're more than likely going to come. Community mindset, giving back to the community, and communicating in a different way. No longer does it have to be the on-demand or the portfolio. It can be the email, it can be the video, it can be the podcast. Personal integrity and responsibility, because you know that's the number 1 thing that makes you a great employer, right? And then the GC gives back. Fun fact on that. My own child, we were talking about it, she's a junior, and asking her what she had in her grade 8. She wasn't really sure between her things that she was choosing from. She's been helping kids fill out their applications for college. And she's been helping them with their essays for scholarship. That made me a pretty proud mom to know that that's what she was doing for her give back. She also works in media class and she makes hype videos. She'll go after school, go to their practices when she doesn't have practice, and she'll make the hype video for that week. It's part of her class, but she's also doing it for the community. Core 4, like I said, middle school, we got started. We wanted them ready for high school. They have 4 of the 8 components already started, so that whenever they come to the high school, they've already got their website ready to go, and it makes it much easier. Now, I will tell you, our high school still is struggling. You're talking 800-900 people that you're trying to get a profile of a graduate finished with, right? And so it has been a learning process for us. So right now, our seniors are teaching our sophomores how to do it, because we just don't have enough staff to pull all that off. Middle schoolers are going to come in much better now. So like next year, the freshmen are going to come in with websites. It'll be so much easier for them. Now we have elementary. We have that tidbit sheetist. I usually want a little card. If you guys didn't pick up a little card, it has a QR code of all the things they're not going to give me time to say yet. Okay, I'm teasing kind of. So there's a QR code that will kind of tell you our website and everything that I didn't have time to cover. Even preschool. Ready to roll. Universal preschool is what we try to offer. We've had to cut back because of funding. Now we're kind of just doing admin and we have a half price payment system. So again, that means using our ESSER funds, different pathways, and volunteers to help us out. We added additional counselors to help with student transition, because one of the things we found in that community meeting is that they did not know what they didn't know as parents, and they wanted to know it. So this helps kids know that certain things are available to them. This is how you get help. Local accountability model came through Brave Ed and John Tanner. We did work with him, did a lot of signaling and teaching us some things that Henry knows all about. And I agree with Henry, I got halfway through it and I was like, I can do this on my own. I don't want to listen to this anymore. So then we just kind of made our own from there. Our local accountability model, which is what they really wanted me to talk about, mirrors our strategic plan. Our strategic plan, 4 pillars, it's community, it's students, it's staff, and operation. Because everybody wants to know where you're spending their money. That's their money, and they want to know what you're doing. We take our strategic plan, each year we monitor it quarterly. 4 pillars, 4 areas we're monitoring, and all the things that fall under those categories. That's all it is. It's not real difficult. That's our local accountability model. Now they tell us what they want to know that fits into those categories, and we modify it. When we do our school improvement plan, and for those of you that are not in education, I apologize, I'm talking lingo you don't want to hear. The school improvement plan also mirrors this. So it's all very cyclical. We got 80 teachers to do project-based learning training there this summer. That really helped with the vital learning portion. And then we started student showcase nights because we weren't ready for defensive learning yet. So those of you that haven't started that, don't feel bad. We started with it. Student showcase nights, it's like PTA, PTO on steroids, where kids are walking around with their puppets that they've made. Literally, I saw a kid inside the puppet. They had made it look like it was something from Star Wars was made. They might perform, they're putting circuits together, they're bringing dolls. We have a doll breeding business. All of our ATC components and classes at high school have a business that went with the entrepreneurship. Welding makes things to sell. Carpentry makes things to sell. Ag makes things to sell. Business department runs all of it and tells them about their products. This is how we demonstrate our model. Notice the one in the center bottom, that's the strategic plan. The left, there are 4 components. This is one of them. This is the gold standard student. And then on the right, that's the profile of the graduate. So it all kind of connects. They all feed each other. It's the destiny, it has to work that way. This is Brendan. Brendan had lost both of his parents because he had an opioid epidemic, and we still have it going on. I have 400 kids that are homeless. And people think homeless, you guys are farmers. Homeless is living with grandparents who can't take care of you, so then you live with your aunt, and they can't put up with you anymore, so then you go to your parents. Right? Homeless is sleeping in your car. This kid was sleeping in his car. He had lost both of his parents. Welding teacher noticed that he was not coming to school. Discovered that he was spending all of his time at McDonald's and sleeping in the car on the parking lot because he had nowhere else to go. Because that teacher had made that connection through vibrant learning and actually getting to know his students, we discovered his situation. We were able to use McKinney Vento money, help get him set up. Out of those meetings, we met a person over insurance who was a Mason who wanted to know how to give back. We got all the Masons in charge, and Masons are a big group in our area. They gambled and sold guns and liquor. Yes. And showed up with $7,000 and said, give this to your kids. We got him set up in an apartment, got him new welding boots, all the gear he needed. He passed his certification, got him a cell phone, got him everything he needed for your down payment, your electricity, all that stuff. Because we know, anybody remember college trying to move? He now is certified. We were building construction bleachers at the time. This kid was a hard worker. We introduced him to the construction team. They hired him on the spot. He worked in the summers, he worked on the weekends, and yes, maybe I allowed him to go on a couple of field trips to work so that he could get the hours he needed and get paid. He now still lives in our community. He lives in good old South Shore. He has a wife, and he still works for that same construction company, using his welding certification that he got from IPW from the gentleman I showed you earlier. See how it all works? It's beautiful. This is our poorest school, Wortland Middle School. They have giving back. RTI. Everybody remembers RTI means you don't need to go to PE, you don't need to go to fitness, you don't need to go to arts, because you need to go to math for the third time. You guys remember that, right? Not for us. RTI is you go to it so many days, and if you're making progress, not that you're completely out of it, but you're making progress, and you're doing the work, and you're putting in the effort, the growth mindset part of it, then you earn 2 days a week to go to a community give back. These kids have a foods class. Foods class realized that there were no people delivering to Meals on Wheels. School counselor, Frisky, all get together. They ask me if they can borrow the school van. They start taking kids to deliver to the elderly in the area the meals. Same group of kids, and we're talking like 70% poverty, 74%. They learn how to make things that people want to buy. They personalize them. They'll press you a t-shirt. They'll make you a hat. They'll make your ornaments. Downtown Ashland has a Christmas spectacular that everybody knows about. It's called Festival of the Trees. People are coming there. They set up shop. They make profits. Their profit went back to doing things for their school. These kids found out that there is nobody who knew how to do the center of the football field because that dad was done. His kid was in the UK. He was not coming back. He had done it for 13 years and retired. So they started showing up 7th period with the art teacher, and they lined the field and did the center logo. That was giving back. That was their skill. That was their art. But they had to do all the math to figure that out. Because we were doing so much back in the community with our local accountability and putting it out there and monitoring it and having them back in, having those discussions, having them tell us what else they wanted to see, they started giving back to us. Now your students pay to get into admission for any event or game because businesses sponsor it. And it works great, guys, because they spend a fortune in the concession stand because their parents drop them off and they have this money they must spend, right? They provide it for everyone. Because of what they told us, and that's one of my favorite pictures because when kids come up, you don't know what they're going to do, right? You leave with the sweatiest, nastiest hands. A lot of them doing us, and I don't mind. Jesse Stewart Institute, that's our latest. Every kid has the opportunity to leave with a full associate's degree. We work with UK and the NKCES group. They all helped us align so that our dual credit, your junior and senior year, would overlap, and kids can walk out with an associate's. So those who are college bound and aren't CTE kids, or maybe they're both, have a step ahead, and they're not getting to school and realizing it's too much, dropping out and coming back with debt. They're ready to go. There's an application process, it's a whole thing. We're really excited about it. So if you want to see the dashboard and the 4 pillars, we got great information such as, attendance. If kids come to school, teachers come to school. when you judge teachers' attendance to kids' attendance, it matched. We learned a lot that way. Little pieces of data really started to stand out for us. And so we found our local accountability to not only help us know what direction we needed to go, but it built bonds with our community that we had severed in the PLA process. So I can't say enough about the opportunity to get to do it, and I do appreciate the fact that KPE is allowing us to showcase what we're doing for it, but also just understanding that there's more than one way to do it, and everybody has an opportunity to do what their community needs, not just a standardized. Okay, that's it.
But you didn't share one of my favorite stories before Henry said, ask about the taxes for Hayfield in Green County, just for a second.
Yeah, so one of our schools, the way that they came up with those different classes at middle school, we had done that, take math, it was like the punishments will continue, teachings will continue kind of thing. So I said, guys, we're not doing any electives in middle school. Don't you remember having electives when you were a kid? You enjoyed going to drafting or, volleyball one or whatever it was. So they started doing career choices. The principal walked in and said, okay, if you could teach anything in the world, you don't have to be certified. If you could teach it, what would it be? And one guy was like, well, on the weekends, I flip houses. He's a science teacher. STEM. Now they're building things. Okay. Somebody else said, I really like to make videos and YouTube videos. Media class. They started a little TV show. So suddenly they went from taking 2 and 3 math classes to having more variety kids could pick, and then they started lining those up to the high school. With that said, there was a contact made, Habitat for Humanity came. Every year, the kids build a house for Habitat for Humanity, and the agricultural team landscapes it. These are middle schoolers. Last year, they built 3 houses. So I'm super excited about that. If you see that little QR code, it has our full local accountability model on it. If you go to the dashboard and kind of look at that, but at the very bottom, there's some little videos that tell our story. And one of them is about our new school of innovation, which we're really excited about. And you'll see a lot of that house building in here.
Thank you so much. Let's give her a round of applause. And one thing you want to notice, there wasn't anything that came out from KPE said you have to do this. It was something that started in their local community. This is something that started, this is what's important to us. When I say us, I'm talking about Green County, us the peers. This is what our community wants from us. Now notice, still, correct test scores, about math and reading. But there's so much more than a test score. They're making a difference in their community. They're connecting. They've done vibrant learning. They've done innovation when it comes to accountability. They've asked their community, hey, what exactly do you want from us? And how can we show you growth? All their CSIP plans, their improvement plans are aligned with their models. And then the best part, in my opinion, is that collaboration. Look at the benefit that has happened, not only with the collaborating within the community, kids getting jobs. The welder story, I've seen that before, the all NKY, I know what that part too, by the way. She said the little kids, all NKY, sorry. But that being said, but that collaboration with the community makes this local accountability portion so much more valuable. She just didn't get together with her principals or central office and say, this is what we'll be accountable for. She got together with the community. What do you want us to be accountable for? Well, if you'll notice, part of the accountability model is what percentage of our budget is spent on this, this, and this. That's what the community wanted to hear about. It wasn't just about students, which it mostly should be about students. It was also about other information that the local community wanted. They wanted to hear. Builds trust, builds confidence. As a matter of fact, Jesse Bacon in Bullitt County, They're doing, their local accountability model. They have a community team that's going together. And one of the quotes that I'm going to paraphrase this, he said, the local accountability process has been a game changer for this district. It's built so much more faith and trust in what we're doing, and people want to be a part of it. It's the best tool in our toolkit for chronic absent people. Tell it's going to be there. And I will say this, look around the room. I guarantee every superintendent in the room, you have pockets of this. There's some things that you're very proud of, like, okay, how's that become part of our local accountability model? Is our community even aware? That's some of the things that do we communicate with our community, and are the things that we're missing? How do we make that grow? And team, and again, one of the best models of collaboration that you can find is the economics. It's already happening here, but what does that look like for the local accountability? So that being said, those three big, I hope that you can see this throughout vibrant learning, innovation when it comes to accountability. And then the third part, of course, will be collaboration. What's that look like? How do you get your business leaders involved? How do you make a difference? I guarantee I'll probably be retired or will in 10 years. But I bet the poverty rate's going to be much lower than 3. That being said, I'll turn it over to Dr. Shannon.
Thank you.
Before Dr. Shannon gets up, I'm going to try my best not to get up and interrupt her. I do this all the time, so I want to apologize first and foremost. But please keep the local accountability as a big part of this in your mind, okay? Now, there's going to be a federal accountability piece. That's what we're required. We're trying to fill buckets. We still believe that's important. But to me, the local accountability piece is the most important part. You gotta have reading, you gotta have mathematics, you gotta have the federal accountability portion. And even if if the U.S. Department of Education slows down tomorrow, we still feel like this is a good model. Okay, so keep that in mind.
The picture that you have with your loan. How old will he or she be in 50 years? How old will they be? What will the world look like at that point, 50 years from now? I'm getting some grins. I got an eyeball here. Do you even know? We have no idea what the world will be like in 50 years. My son, who I bring up his picture, he'll be ready for retirement. That's the world that we are preparing our students for. Yet, you and I, we can't even describe it. We can't describe what it will be like in 50 years. Can we even describe what it's going to be like in 5 years? As this Alexander said? We can't describe that. So we have to prepare our students for an unknown world. A world in which they have no idea. If we can't describe it, they have no idea. So we have to have our education system prepare our students for unknown. So we have to give them these vibrant learning experiences that we've heard about, so that they can take those durable skills and be able to be successful in a world that they have no idea what it will look like. We're talking about systems of assessment and accountability. There's 2 different systems, but for the spread and encouragement of vibrant learning and local accountability systems, giving way for those important, new, exciting, innovative practices. So that it's happening now. These innovative practices are happening, local accountability is happening, but encouraging that through the systems of assessment and accountability. 2 systems, assessment and accountability, 2 different things, related, but 2 different things. Assessments, think about your tests, think about your surveys, your quality of school climate and safety survey, a climate survey, your tests in reading, math, science, social study, writing. That's the test. 3rd grade reading, 4th grade math, 8th grade social studies, testings, assessment system, and accountability. Although related, 2 different things. Your accountability is the indicators of your school's performance based on different types of indicators. 2 different systems interrelated. Encouraging that spread of those vibrant learning experiences and that local innovation. Providing opportunities for our students so that they can, again, be prepared to demonstrate their knowledge and skills in various ways. Not so traditional, although that's needed and sometimes, but moving toward innovation and bringing that so that students can demonstrate knowledge and skills in various ways. Assessing accountability systems, again, encouraging the collaboration with our communities so that our communities help determine what that local accountability system is and what is important to them. We heard from Greenup County Superintendent Racy that the career preparedness was first and foremost. ACT and test scores were last. Their local communities, she engaged with them and they decided what was important to their community. Developing systems that can be flexible and customizable so that each individual school district can tell their own story. Stories that nobody else can tell. To be able to highlight the good things and the good practices that are happening in every single school, whether it's a PLA school or not. Good things are happening so that we can provide systems that allow the schools to create that story and tell the good things that are happening. Developing partnerships with the community. Who benefits? When you have your citizens come together, providing that guidance and direction, that support to our schools, who benefits? Our schools benefit, our educators benefit, and most importantly, our students benefit. Brandon, the welder, do you think he's going to give back to that community in that school? Absolutely 100%. So it'll keep working. It'll keep working in the systems. Supporting that, moving away from systems that rank and provide a ranking system, although we have some that have federalities, moving away from the colors and moving toward collaborations with other schools and districts who have already gone down the path of vibrant learning and local accountability systems. Partnering with local labs of learning or others that are not part of the local lab of learning that have already created these local systems and these vibrant learning systems. Developing support networks so that we can learn from each other and not be compared with each other, but collaborate with each other. Because when we work together, everybody wins. Bringing forward and supporting networks of districts that may be geographically far apart, but demographically very similar. So that we can face challenges and learn and overcome those challenges together. We had a superintendent meeting back when we first started the town halls. The superintendent said, "Going to have heart surgery, I know that. But I want the best doctor, whether he or she is from my county or another county. I want the best doctor to do my open heart surgery."
So moving toward that system that thought that we are all one in our education system. Encouraging and developing networks where we bring together schools and districts so that they can support each other. Providing those opportunities to work together and develop that system of support. Had the opportunity to sit in on 2 districts that are engaged in local accountability now. The one district was telling the other district and other stakeholders that were providing input about their local accountability system. It was Clinton County that was presenting, and Dr. Priestman is in his 4th local accountability system, his 4th one. And the district that, and we were looking at this 4.0, and it's very complex, very complicated. So the feedback that they got to Clinton County was critical in that it was pretty complex and it made it hard for the local community to understand it. So he took that and his next iteration of his local accountability system will be more streamlined. So working together, being critical friends and partners together in our education system, and providing that support for each other. So we've talked several times about this local accountability system and a federal accountability system. So I'm going to tell you what's in 2.0, and then I'm going to, along the way, interject where we think it's going in our 3rd framework. So we've gotten a good bit of feedback on this graphic. This graphic is going to change in 3.0. Okay, because we're talking about 2 systems, yet there's 3 pieces on here. We were trying to make it provide some choice measures with the local, and it seemed to be confusing to us. We really appreciate that feedback that we got. So the next framework, you'll see 2 pieces. So if you could, for now, look at this navy, the dark gray on the right, statewide federal measures as one system, and then the other 2 together for the local accountability system. So let's start at the top on the right with the federal. Now, as of today, the Every Student Succeeds Act still stands, and there are requirements that we must meet. There are buckets, we call them, that we have to provide the measures that will align to those requirements in that bucket. The first one and foremost is reading and math, an indicator for accountability. Now, in this federal piece, there are accountability, and then we talk about assessment. The last one is about assessment. The first 5 is about accountability. Okay, 2 different systems interrelated. So the first 5 is about accountability. So about accountability indicators of reading and math would be within the federal system. And then we also, from our feedback in our surveys, we received input that from the survey that of the respondents, 92% of respondents wanted to move away from our current model of accountability that has a component of change in it to individual student growth. So individual student growth is an indicator right now in the federal accountability piece. So that individual student growth is where you got the student and where you took the student from one year to the next. Individual student growth would be particularly on reading and math at the elementary grades only, and elementary middle school grades only, because right now we have testing at 3 through 8 in reading and math. So that's the only 2 levels that we have individual student growth. We don't test every year at high school in reading and math. So individual student growth is at elementary middle school indicator. So reading and math, individual student growth. then the other pieces, they don't change. Transition readiness, graduation rate, English learner progress, or English language progress, and the climate and safety survey. Now, if you saw 1.0 that we took to the Kentucky Board of Education, LSAC, and I think full Kentucky United Learn Council, science was in the federal accountability. We heard very clearly, very plainly, that we've got some work to do on science. Let's pull it out, make it a test, report it, and make it a choice measure in our local and meet the requirements of our federal requirements of testing science and reporting science, but not put it in that federal classification for identification of our lowest performing schools.
Dr. Stafford, one of the ways that I look at this former math teacher, think about the formula. There's a formula of how everything goes together to give you a final number. So the reading of math is part of the formula for that CSI, TSI, ACSI, if you will, where we can identify students. Individual student growth will be a part of the formula. Transition radius, graduation rate will be part of the formula. Our English language progress, the climate safety survey, I think right now is 4%. So it would be part of the formula, if you will. Science, and we've talked about this before, we have some work we need to do in science, but curriculum or assessment, there's work that needs to be done. So we're pulling that out so we can work on that separate. It still has to be recorded, and we want it to be recorded, and it has to be uniform. The assessment still has to be given, okay? And that's fine as far as part of the federal accountability piece. I'm sorry, rewind. A part of the federal assessments. It is an assessment that has to be given, but it doesn't have to be part of the formula. I hope that makes sense. So, and the other things too, we talked about with science assessment, and Dr. Stafford, I'll kind of study on that part. In 2.0 right now, where we have that there will be assessments in science, grades 3 through 10 every year. Now, it's only required that we give it in the grade counts. In other words, we give it once in the elementary, once in the middle, and once in high school. So the input that we're hearing from a lot of people is, well, instead of giving it every year, why don't we just give it in the grade count? Now, our thought would be that we're offering the 3rd or 4th grade assessment, and way districts can utilize that for, some type of instructional assessment, how you project for progressing towards that 5th grade year. But we're hearing from different districts who say, look, we really want this to be streamlined a little better. So that's some input we need to hear from you. Do you think it's better in the grade bands, or do you like the idea of 3 through 10? Okay, that's something to think about. Now, with that being said, 3 through 10, that's more testing. It is. But is that worth having that information work through your science programs 3 through 10 or not? If it's not, that's fine. That's what we want to hear about. Do we really want to just do it in the 5th grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade? And something else to notice too, we're trying to finish up all our assessments by 10th grade.
Part of that calculation in the federal accountability. So moving it over to social studies and writing, moving over to a local accountability, when there's a choice measure. It's required, these choice measures are required to be in your local accountability, but how you do it, how you include them, is up to the local district. So for science or for social studies and writing, the state would offer assessments, again, grades 3 through 10. If the district so chose to use that. And I'm going to use a term that you may not have ever heard in Kentucky before. They can opt into assessments in social studies and writing. Because those are so important for those transferable skills in their portrait of the learner and engaging that your portrait of the learner of engaged citizen, collaborator, communicator. Those content areas lead toward those competencies and those skills in your portrait of a learner, and they align to those. So give them the opportunity to opt into the state test, or if the district had their own local measure, competency-based measure, or more authentic demonstration of social studies and writing, the district can choose to create their own assessment. Again, the choice measures are required to be in your local accountability system, but how you do it is a choice, whether you opt in to the state assessment or you create your own. Okay?
When you think about creating your own, in your profile as a learner, you may have an excellent way to talk about progress in social studies, or progress in writing, and that may be part of your defensive learning. So the social studies and writing, things that you can do, we're just saying it needs to be in your local accountability. So, but a lot of districts don't have these models. So that's why we're offering those assessments 3 through 10, so that, okay, we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that, so we can take the state 3 through 10 tests that are given, because we're not ready for that competency based. We don't have a profile learner up to work running. We don't have an local accountability model that we feel comfortable with when it comes to social and writing. So you can take the test that we get, or you can come up with your own assessment, if you will, or performance assessment. It could be competency-based assessment. That's up to you how you do that. I hope that makes sense.
Another required piece of the local accountability system would be your vibrant learning experiences. So you've seen several models here today about vibrant learning experiences. How you do that, again, is a choice for your local district, and how you include that, or what the students would be engaged in. We heard a lot of really good examples, but there's tons more examples. We had Bullitt County, when we were at OVEC, they had one of my favorite stories was a third grader. It had been engaged in vibrant learning experiences and had written his own book. Actually, he wrote 2 books, and they're now on Amazon that you can buy. So this third grader wrote their own book. So again, vibrant learning experiences, there's tons of opportunities, and it would be a choice measure. Now, the Accelerating Innovation Standing Committee within the Kentucky United We Learn, they developed a list or a menu of options for vibrant learning experiences that included things like capstone projects, defensive learning, apprenticeships, things of that nature. But again, it would be up to the local districts, and the local districts could determine how they wanted to include that. If the district was really far down the road, they can look at the quality of the vibrant learning experience. If they weren't so far along in it, then they could possibly just include the percentage of students included in your vibrant learning experiences as part of the local measure. Okay, the last one there on choice measures, that's where we've had a lot of feedback around our interim assessment. So I'm going to tell you how it is now, and we listened, and how it's going to be. So when we went through the survey, and we put out surveys during our study phase, 67% of our respondents said, yes, I will give up our interim assessments for a state developed interim assessment. Okay, so in 2.0, right now, how it has it is that the state would develop interim assessments in reading and math, grades 3 through 10, to be given in the fall and winter that would align to the summer. It would be separate. We have 2 interims that would be produced by the same vendor. We would engage teachers in that, and it would be aligned to the Kentucky academic standards. Okay, so that right now in 2.0 is required. we heard that maybe districts would not be as willing to give up their interim assessments. They've got a lot of investment in their math and IRA and STAR. They've got a lot of processes that are developed in their schools around it. So in 3.0, that's going to be a choice measure, again, where you can opt into the interim assessments that the state provides, the General Assembly would pay for. If the district so chose to keep their own local interim assessment, then the district could do that, but yet pay for it themselves. Okay, so how it is now is required as part of your local accountability system. How it will be in 3.0 is it will be a choice that you can choose to include it in your continue with your math and reading and IRA. And again, these would be then part of your local accountability.
And again, you hear that phrase opt-in. We hear from so many districts that we have invested so much money into IRA, MAC, STAR, and we've done so many trainings that we want to continue that. That's fine. Because the interim assessment itself is not part of the federal accountability system. Okay, now what I'll say is interim assessments in our view are going to be aligned with the summit. And that summit that wants to, again, that's the state test, if you will, the federal test. So we're trying to align that interim assessment with what's at the end. One of the other things we've got from one district is like, if we want to do interim assessments, why not do these K through 10? I'm sorry, including kindergarten versus second grade. That way, if you opt into our interim assessments, you have the same assessments all the way through. So what we advocate with the legislature is if districts opt in to what we offer, we would ask the state legislature to pay for that. Now, the other things too that I'm very interested in, and we talk about this a lot throughout, is we also want our state assessment to include grade level equivalency. Now, right now, we test grade level standards. So what would have to happen in these interim assessments, you want to have a core assessment that is based on state standards on the grade level. That's going to have to wrap around that. It's going to have to be the flexibility, adaptability pieces of like, you take an assessment kind of like MAC and STAR, if you get this correct, you get a higher level, you get this correct, it's a higher level, and then at what point can we actually say this student is maybe they're in the third grade, but they're reading on the 4.5 grade level. So we'd like to have grade level equivalence down there because one of the biggest, I think one of the biggest issues we have in our state is we keep saying proficiency. And again, the proficiency is a measure of what they master on the grade level. But people don't always understand that. They will understand grade level equivalency. So again, our dream on this, and this would be a part of the right thing we'd have to put out, we'd ask for a vendor. And then what we have to also probably include some of our, maybe even include some of our teachers in on this, is have that interim piece that has a core on grade level standards. Wrapped around that have the flexibility that test to give you a grade level equivalency. So it had to be some more of assessment. Now, you already have MAC and STAR and already those type of things. If you want to keep yours, that's fine. But it's our goal to align those interims with that summit. And you've noticed one of the things I said earlier, our goal is to try to get teachers instructional data as quickly as possible. And that's why we included this interim. Because if you give the assessment, what you're doing already, on Friday, and you can make changes in your NKCES and all your systems on Monday. Change the instruction. So this is different. This is a different interim allowing you to opt in. So that's one of the things that we have with this interim piece.
So the last piece of local accountability would be that there would be assurances that the district has engaged their local communities in conversations of identifying the priorities for that local community, as well as then align that with their portrait of a learner as well. Now, there are districts in various phases of local accountability and vibrant learning. Some people are well down the road toward that. Others it may not even be a thought in their mind yet. So we have to be the districts and school leaders where they are, and the community leaders as well as our students where they are. So we'll start very slowly, starting with pilot districts, encouraging that collaboration, so to learn from each other, so that, again, we can support each other in this. Then expand that to other districts and then eventually statewide. So when we're talking about the timeline for this, so we're talking about legislation consideration in the 2026 legislative session. So a year, literally a year from now. So if it gets passed, then we start with pilot phase. Then after that, then the expansion phase and the spread phase. We're talking several years down the road for this. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to the Commissioner, and again, I just encourage you to continue. We appreciate you coming out tonight on such a rainy night, and we really appreciate that. We want to.
Skip Dr. Stafford. I think Dr. Stafford and the team up here probably deserve casual pay of having to deal with the commissioner so much and be a part of this. But honestly, this is exciting work. If you think about this, another vibrant learning experience we had in Christian County. We have a student, and again, there's a lot of these types of situations. I know I'm pulling one out of thousands across the state, but here's another. And you may have something similar to this in your district. I have a student that does work-based learning for a drone company. He has to step out of his classroom on a regular basis to answer questions from companies from all over the world. They have no clue they're talking to a second. But this kid is making money on a work-based learning project, stepping out of his classroom, answering questions from people all over the world about drones. So that's vibrant learning. Student earning money. A third grader has got books on Amazon, got 2 books on Amazon. And probably one of my absolute favorite, I'll share 2 more things and open up for questions. A lot of students, a lot of people say, what my stress certification? In one of our districts, Shelby County, they do defensive learning even with some of their alternate assessment students. Or they do them all. They try to do it every single student has to as part of their IEP. Well, even some these students, part of the defensive learning, they had to learn about processes. Process they learned about how to make ice cream. And you know what they made ice cream for? They made their parents. Their parents came in, they made ice cream, they walked, they tried to get, with whatever system technology that was necessary. And part of their defensive learning and how to run processes was making ice cream. There's nothing else that can be said. I mean, that's a great opportunity. Let's also talk about our EL population. We have districts that are doing defensive learning where students are able to do the defensive learning in their native language with members of the community and business leaders that speak their native language so they can celebrate their culture, their heritage, and where they're from with people that actually speak their language. And that's part of their defensive learning. So again, what does this look like for you as a district? How do you change that? Of course, we spend a lot of time, we have talked about the federal piece because there's federal requirements. And we believe there has to be how do you label CSI, TSI? People change that. I don't say label because I was in 2 schools at 2 different times. They were PLS schools. That's a scarlet level. It's hard. It really is. There's a lot of work to come out of that. But once you come out of it, you earn the trust of your community, and all of a sudden you have the opportunity to do this innovative. These things that really matter to the community. So, I'll let you know, you've seen, I can't tell you enough, Dr. Stafford doesn't get enough credit, and also the pool. Anybody else in the pool council in here? You're a part of the pool council, thank you, pool council. Our pool council has asked us so many questions, they've been a part of this, they've been a part of the prototypes. We put out so many surveys. As a matter of fact, early on, 92% of the people that gave us input on our surveys wanted to get away from change and move to student growth. So that became a part of this model, student growth. Early on in the prototype, we were still talking about change, but after some modeling and after the input that we received, now we're talking about growth. You can see the difference in science, how science is being pulled out and treated separately. Again, we have to give a science assessment. We got work to do in science. As a matter of fact, by reporting it separately, you have a lot of, to me, that's a higher level of accountability that's being separate. But also, too, the other things that we're trying to work from is just because the state doesn't give you a test, it doesn't mean it's not important. Your community should determine what's important and what's that look like. We're offering social studies tests, we're offering writing tests so you can opt in, but you probably can come up with a much better social studies test than I'm no math teacher. I know you. What does that look like for you? So give me those opportunities. So anyway, if you see the prototypes being developed, the legislative awareness, we have legislators that have been a part of this work. Representative Tipton was in full council meetings in their wives, Representative Truitt, Representative Bojanowski, and I think Senator Neal was in one of our,
West.
was actually observing online on the legislative. And I'm sorry.
West.
Oh, Senator West. Thank you.
Janine. Janine.
Janine was there too. I forgot. I apologize. Janine was there too. Do we have any legislators? We've had legislators to come to these also, and we've invited them. So we're making sure that we're making those connections. Study phase, we've gone through this, and if you look all the way up trying to engage the assembly, we're doing this now. We're getting their input. We're telling them what we're hearing from town halls. And then after we leave this, we have 3.0. Hopefully we'll have 3.0 within the next month or so, and then be ready to move forward and try to go. Next slide. Oh. All right. Well, she switched it for me. Now think about the picture one more time. So many things are going on in your students, okay? And they're vibrant learning experiences. They're life changing for our students. But how do we make sure that every single student has that same opportunity in your district, in our districts? How do we collaborate together to make sure those opportunities are happening across the country? Is this the type of system that you'd like to see that student that you saw a picture of grow up? I would. Because the only way you're going to get to a meaningful and useful accountability system is we make sure that we include local accountability. All right. If you want to see how you be a part of the advocacy phase, you can click on this. There's some information. Matter of fact, if you have the card, there should be, I think there's a card with all the QR codes on it too. So if you want to keep a hold of that, you can have that also. But before we go into questions, this is something we did a little bit different, probably after our second one. I want you to turn and look to the person next to you and think about what are some of the wows? What are some of the things you're like, man, this is something that I'm impressed with. These are some of the things that we're doing in our district and fits beautifully in this, but maybe this is how we can grow. So what are some of the wows of what you've seen here today? But also, what are the wonders? In other words, what questions do you still have? And we want you to talk amongst yourselves for just a few minutes to have that, is this a cadence strategy, I think? I think it is. Turn and talk. Is that all right? Elbow partners. Thank you. There we go. Elbow partners. So look at an elbow partner and say, this is some of the things that I'm all in. This is what we think needs to be a part of it. Then these are some of the questions we still have. So you have about 5 minutes starting now. All right. Wows and wonders. This is your opportunity to say, hey, about questions, these are things that we really are all in for. We'd like to see this. These are some things you still need to consider or questions you may have. That's what we're here for.
Dr. Fletcher, if I may add, we're hiding over here in wings. We have microphones. We know many of you have your teacher voice in the room, but we do want to make sure all of our sessions are accessible. So we do have a live recording as well. So we're just going to ask that you wait for us. We'll sprint to you, get our steps in for the evening, and just make sure we capture your voice so that others can hear as well.
So, here, would you mind for the layperson here,
elaborate a little bit more on how you distinguish proficiency from grade level standards? I hear a lot about these 30-something percentile in terms of proficiency, math, et cetera. I got my limited understanding what I thought that meant. But it sounds like you're coloring a little bit where it could be more meaningful for me to better understand. What does that really mean? That sounds like what we've understood. This is very good performance. You know, we've only got this small percentage of people that are up to speed. Can you help me understand that a little bit better, please?
For sure, for proficiency, it's a high standard in that, when a student is labeled as a proficient student, that means that they are successful at those grade level standards at a high rate. Distinguished, the student is answering questions and has performance that they are successful well over the majority of the time. So that's that high level of standard. But then when the commissioner talks about grade level equivalency, it would be around area that doesn't have that as high a bar for that piece of success at those upper levels. That it's more of an average level, grade level, basic level of understanding for across all of those high level standards. Those Kentucky academic standards.
We set proficiency. We have a group of teachers that come in actually and we look at the assessments and look at cut points and things of that nature. And essentially, you have teachers that come in and say, "This is what the bar is, if you will, for grade level proficiency." Is that standardized? It's not really standardized. It's just like this is the percentage of students based on our standards that the teachers deem this is the cut point for proficiency. It's a little bit different. Then it's not really like a percentile rank. A lot of times we think it's a percentile rank. It's not. Would you agree with that? Okay. So when you look at, I really like percentile ranks because everyone can understand you scored in the 50th percentile. You scored in the 75th percentile. But I also like grade level equivalency because a person can understand that you scored, if you're a second grade student and you're on the fourth grade reading level, that's great. So people basically have a frame of reference with the way our assessments are. We are basing proficiency on how the grade level standards. I hope that helps.
So if that is proficiency, then sort of, like you said, an intentionally high bar that connotes some form of mastery, so to speak, and even that is relative to that particular, local standard.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct, because those teachers that came in to determine that cut point of where the threshold is for the different performance levels. So the process is it's called a bookmarking process that we utilize to develop those cuts from novice to apprentice, from apprentice to proficient to distinguished. So what they do is they look at the assessments, they look at the performance on the tests from the students, and they determine using their expertise and knowledge of that content area where that cut point is that crosses that threshold of understanding that the students are demonstrating at each of those different levels.
Thank you. First question I had was interim assessments, and just looking for some clarification. So we give the interim assessment 3 times a year. Is the third interim assessment going to be utilized as the state assessment? Is that the plan at this time?
Yes, sir. The first one, and how we propose this, that in 2.0, it's actually in here that just to replace your math chart. But as you said, we've heard feedback that people want to keep those. So what would happen is these 2 interim assessments are really for formative assessments. And then that third one is part of the summit, which is part of the state account or the federal accountability piece. So that's the third one would be the state accountability.
Great, thank you. Also, the writing would be, for example, if the district chose to do something locally with their writing on their own, how will that be reviewed by the city? What's that process going to look like now?
One of the things that I'm not sure if we touched on, but we're asking for in the, a third party evaluator to come in and say, okay, these are the exemplars across the state. We're not coming in to have a company to come in and say, this is a valid system, this is a not a valid system. Now, they may come out with recommendations for you, but what we would want to say is, this is like, for example, you have an excellent way to do your portions of a learner. And we use that as a model across the state, say, okay, if you want to look at a district that's doing a phenomenal job of portion learning, this is the place you can go to. Or maybe we have about collaboration. Maybe we can say these are some excellent performance assessments in science. So that third party group would come in and identify those as exemplars so other districts can learn from them if they want. So that writing assessment, how you determine it's up to you. I mean, some people will say something that I can't believe I'm going to say. Some districts might want to write their volumes. I like that. Everybody's like, no. And again, that group is to come in to identify those exemplar practices that allow you to say, these are some inputs that we can give you suggestions from other states, from other districts, and things like that.
And like I said, I appreciate you being here. I've said this once before, so it's not new to you, but my fear is what you just said, when those groups come in, that we're going to lose that level of accountability, because I feel like essentially that local, when we lose local context, when we move to that one size fits all approach. And I think, again, these great things are happening right now without this occurring. You know, I just want us to be really careful that we don't jeopardize something that's already great by trying to put something in a box, so to speak.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's not the point of this third party value. It's to give people exemplars. So we need to work together. The flexibility and the local accountability is so important. And so I don't want to give you a this is local accountability, because then that defeats the whole things. But I think it's very important that maybe districts can learn from you, or districts can learn about, maybe even something to the effect that there may be an innovative way that you're talking about how you're collaborating with communities, or your capstone projects, or maybe there's some work-based learning opportunities that we can share across the state. At no point will you ever hear me say that we want this to be uniform. At no point, because then we're not reaching the moonshot. In order for it to be meaningful and useful, it has to be local development. It really is. So if we ever get to that point, you call me and say, Dr. Fletcher, you lied to them. I don't think I will. I'll do my best to do that. Yes, sir.
So I think you're touching on what my biggest concern is about the local accountability is there is so much compliance that's coming from the state level in terms of what the local accountability model looks like, that I fear that we are getting to exactly what you're trying to avoid, which is a one size fits all type approach of you must have this, or you have options, but you must have interim assessments. You must do something around social studies and writing. You see where I'm going with this? Is it's already starting to feel like that? Is that it's not local accountability, it's local accountability that fits the framework that the Department of Education is going to give us. So again, I'm with Joe. Let's be very, very mindful of where we're heading. If we truly want local accountability, that's got to be developed at the local level and not. That's been our problem for a lot of years, is we're trying to create things at the local level that fit into frameworks that were given by somebody else. That's not local accountability. That's compliance.
I understand. Do you already have interim assessments? What's your assessment? What is that?
NWA map.
NWA map.
Yep.
Again, you have that local autonomy that you want to use that. You already do. You don't need to look at the assessment, so you don't have to look. So that takes that out. And that's the reason why we have to listen to input like that. That's why we're offering the option piece.
But you're still telling every school district they have to do interim assessment.
Well, you already have to have universal screeners, you have to have those project monitoring toolkits. but we're not telling you to add anything that you're not already doing. Now, I will, with the exception, one of the things, one of the big pushes, and I'll have to agree, is Bible learning. There needs to be Bible learning in there, but do you really have to have a measure that says, what percentage of our students are engaged in Bible learning? You could, but you may have a better model within your portraits to learn or in other areas that look better. So what you're seeing us give you are things that, again, we heard from town halls. And this, any social studies teachers in here? Listen, a lot of our social studies teachers in the first three, man, I tell you what, I wish the state government was nearly as organized as the social studies teachers were. No, in all seriousness, no, but how do you get away from that idea that we have to give an assessment for social studies to be important? So hopefully we get away from even having to have that requirement because districts are already doing it. For me, I would want to lessen these requirements at some point, but this gives us a framework. Because so many districts say, where do we start? I see your point. My goal is not to get to that point where we stop. Because at that point, it just becomes compliance. And you're wrong. And we don't want to. There are some guardrails there already, I agree. But again, I'm not looking to add. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of the guardrails we're giving you are things that are already happening.
Thanks to Dr. Fletcher for the overviews. I'm still trying to get my head around, the local accountability measures sound nice. I think the accountability measure, state, local, otherwise, that most school districts tell me that matters most is their individual assessment. Now, state assessment is how they get accountability from the colors, but what they use as educators is their local accountability. And so the state moving to one that it wants to invest in, to be figured out later, that would put meaningful state money behind, that sort of puts pressure on them to move away from systems they built their meaningful, work around. That's a concern for me because I don't know what that looks like. But it seems that they're putting state money behind one and saying locals could pay for the rest. And locals in Northern Kentucky are already paying for most of it. So it seems the state money is going to something else. And it's almost like if you want to do the thing that works for you and keep it, you have to go out of your own pocket further. So I think the concern, you talked a lot about the local stuff. It seems to me that income assessment question is the biggest thing on the table tonight. And I have a lot of discomfort with how you're describing going from legislature in 2016.
Well, one of the pieces that we had is, well, why can't districts, if they put a macro start of their own, why can't they get an allocation? So again, I'm not looking to force anybody to take our assessment. No. Now, I do believe it makes sense that if you're going to have an interim assessment that's aligned nicely with the Sunday assessment, that's really the pressure, to be honest, in my opinion. If you're a district, especially if it's on the cusp of CSI, TSI, ATSI. So again, we're not trying to design this around CSI, TSI, ATSI. What we're trying to design is to give that local flexibility. So some of the things that I've heard superintendents say that they'd like to hear from our legislators, like, okay, yes, we'll back to the interim assessment, but why not give that same type of allocation to a district that wants to keep their own map and start? And as long as it's working for you, that's fine. So some of the input we've heard is, how do you do that? Again, what we're showing with interim, again, that's why we're having these town halls, is so we give that feedback from them. I'm not trying to pressure anybody to take my interim assessment. I'm not. We're It's for the recording.
First of all, I just want to thank you for speaking tonight. We're from Raglan County, and you just sort of validated that all the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into our portrait of a learner, that we're on the right track. We started our process 2 years ago with UK Office of Next Gen and Super Google, and we just decided, look, this is what we're going to do, and this is for the kids, and this is what the kids need. And so thank you for validating all our hard work. And we've actually rolled it out pretty slowly because we want to get those roots and that trunk strengthened before we can, get the furniture to thrive. My question is, we are very similar to Green County, so maybe Tracy can answer this. We're a very small rural poor district. The school system is the biggest employer. And so how do you get more of that community involvement? That's the struggle that we're seeing right now. Because there really isn't, we have no industry, there's
Well,
much.
I can answer that. For example, in Ken Spencer, on my best friend, but I think they have a whippy dip in the southern. So they partner a lot with Montgomery County. They have a great relationship with the supervisors with their neighboring district. And they work on how do they give those opportunities. For example, they'll release students to go to be, to do maybe some nurse at the hospital. I think maybe one of the hospitals or something of that nature, but they try to partner together to give those students in Menifee County the same type of opportunities that you're going to see in Montgomery County. So our goal is, for example, I'm from Martin County originally. Martin County, once the coal industry left, they went from, at once upon a time, probably 1,200 students, which is a lot in Martin County, to right around 500 in their high school. I'm talking about high school, 1,200 in their high school, down to 500. So there's only certain industries there, so we want to have to partner with those, and we want to connect Bracken with Martin to say, how do you build a local accountability together? But also, too, maybe how can you partner with some surrounding districts to make sure those opportunities are open? And similar to things like Ignite. Or, you know, even just something as simple as this, I mean, this is a different level, but the swimming pool here. I mean, yes, there's opportunities for other districts to utilize that, but how can we spread that throughout? Now, Tracy's got a better, probably give a better answer because she's a practitioner. So Tracy, your thoughts?
Okay, so first off, we were a member of the L3 work. It's local laboratories of learning. And they have templates and folders after folders after folders of things that you will get lost in a Google, okay? Of how to lead meetings with your community, how to go out and find members of your community, because we started with a robust social media campaign. Do you want to be a part of deciding by your school? And in our area, Facebook, you know, it's the gospel, right? It happens, it's on Facebook. So we would put out things like a Google survey. If you want to be a member of this committee, sign up. Tell us what you'd be interested in sharing. What's your occupation? Do you have a child in our school? All of that's included. We got the list. We held a community meeting. Like I said, 50 showed up. After 2 years, we still had about 25 of them, which is pretty good. And we were able to get people who were invested to see what we were going to share as far as progress the next time we came back. So we would say, okay, so you've given me all of these Post-it notes, and you told me I'm going to have a survey I'm going to send to you. You're going to give me the information and answer the survey, and I'm going to give you the results when you come back. So there's like a little cliffhanger to get them to come back. And they continued coming back, and like I said, we had no money. You know, usually it was really about the type of one understanding to bribe them with pizza, dinner, or something. We really didn't have that. They just came as sincere people. We had teachers, we had students. We had teachers who brought their elementary students with them who they didn't know about there. So we got good feedback from the kids too. But I highly recommend putting that broad, because a lot of times you get a few people who maybe weren't real excited about the school system because they didn't have a great experience themselves. So when they come into the school and just see that something's in the model, they're excited, right? They say, oh, this isn't what it looked like when I was here. And you take them on a tour, and then you show them all the cracks and things that you fixed as well, so they know you're not perfect. And I'll be honest, one of the things that came out of this, our district had tried to pass the nickel tax on more than one occasion and had never been able to. And after doing this for a year and a half, we got enough trust in our community. They passed it. Not a single person started a petition. We had no issues. And so it's really benefited us in other ways. Now, something we're starting right now, I'm getting ready to put something out that says, would you like to have a community of learning process? So we're going to call them I think we said ambassador program of some sort. They can sign up, we'll take 20 people, and they'll meet with me 4 times throughout the year. I take them on a tour of a certain building, let them ask questions, and tell them about our initiatives. And then they can go out into the community and say, hey, I'm on this committee, I'm learning this stuff that's going on. Did you know that they have a grooming business? Did you know that they have an EMT program, which is the only one in the state? Because before, we didn't have an ambulance service. Now we have one, and we're getting taxed for one, but they don't have any EMTs. So they came to us and said, we know you have a great health science program. Could we start an EMT program with you? It'll cost you $12,000. Very similar to the IBW problem that we have. And you find that money if you know it's going to benefit kids. We have 25 EMTs ready to go in May. So that's the kind of stuff you have to prove to them that you're going to use what they tell you. If it doesn't get implemented, then they don't come back. So that's how it works.
Commissioner, we are over time.
Well, I just want to say, listen to her because she's not feeding them when they're coming, right? She said that. I've been doing this a long time, as you know, and I just want to commend you and KP for listening because the change from 1 to where we're going with 3 is immense. The concerns that are voiced are from people that's been in this role for a while. What I would encourage you to think about is maybe a guiding principles or foundational principles section on local accountability, because we know what happens when this goes to the legislator, and perhaps the intent is changed to everything's now dictated. I'm not saying they're going to do that, or change in personnel 3 years from now, and maybe the vision's lost. But if that local accountability has foundational principles or whatever is termed, that is kind of a guiding to allow that flexibility to remain in local districts, perhaps that protects some of the integrity of what we're trying to accomplish. But I commend you all for listening and making changes. Thank you.
Great idea. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, I'll try to bring up something. Well, first and foremost, I mean, we are over time, but please, you have cards. Please write down this question. We'll get the answer back with you. But I'll go back to one of the things with Superintendent Racy pointed out. We were Lawrence County, I was superintendent Lawrence County, and one of the things that we included faith leaders, we included business leaders, we included parents. We started off with really an interview process of just calling different people and say, tell us your story and your experience in Lawrence County. And I was amazed by how many people came back to, you know what, Dr. Fletcher, thank you to you and your staff for getting us out of the PLA status. Thank you to our kids for that. But that's really not what we're about. We didn't leave them in. They started off talking about we were so much more than just a test student. And how do we make sure we know that? So by having our faith leaders on that, Lawrence County, there's a lot of churches in Lawrence County. And they were able to go out and talk to people. They were able to out and share things. And then, and I tell you, Tracy actually pointed out one of the most important things is let them see a difference the next time they come. Did you listen? I guarantee folks, if we didn't go from prototype 1 to prototype 3, this would have been a different meeting tonight. And it should have been a different meeting. It really should have been. If we're not listening to you, then why are we here? The same thing's one of what your community members expect of you. If you're not listening to them, they're not going to come back. So how do we make those changes? How do we make that local accountability? And I will close with this. A good example that we talk a lot about across the state is Shelby County. Shelby County years ago used the James Nighthawk, super guy, great superintendent. They did a lot of work with Portugal learners for a long time. But they never got into local accountability until recently. So their dashboard, they were putting in all these charts and data points that their local communities are asking for, but they're also having people to tell the story on their website. It's testimonials. So we're picking out people that's like, this is the difference that I can see. This is the things that's changed. As being a part of this local accountability, these are the changes that I'm seeing. These are the differences that are going on. So not only are they telling their story with the data that the community wants to hear, they're allowing their they're not allowed, but it's a part of their website to have the people to tell the story of change. That's a whole different level of local accountability, folks. I can give you any test score, any interim assessment, anything that matters. There's a whole different level when you're accountable to your local community. That's the way I see it today. And I think we have some opportunity. I know all superintendents in the room, you have my cell phone number. Matter of fact, my cell phone number is 606-371-2587. Yes, it's still 606. 606-371-2587. You're welcome to text me. Give me a few minutes, it may take a little bit to answer back. But again, if you see something that we're going on a different path, you tell me, you call me out. I'll do my best to correct it, if at all possible. And said, thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. And if you have any other questions, please write it down on the card, and we'll do our best to catch it. We've been getting those back pretty regularly, pretty quickly. So thank you for being here.